Freedom Reigns Radio Network is not responsible for the views and opinions of the guests or hosts of this show. The views and opinions expressed in this show are strictly the views and opinions of guests or hosts of this program.
Good morning. Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone, to this week's Opt-In show. It may be the last show that we are calling the Opt-In show, but we'll see about that. It seems to be wanting to undergo a facelift. My name's Lisa Harrison, and today we have, as usual, we have Brian Kelly.
Hello, Lisa. Hello, everyone. Glad to be here.
How are you today?
I'm good. One of these days, I'm going to sing the Hallelujah song as our introduction. We're going to do away with that music, and I'm just going to rope it out.
Oh, we can get Bob to rap it.
Yeah, I'm up for that.
I still want Bob to do his Ewok rap online.
Oh, it's going down. That's happening.
That has to happen. And how are you, Bob?
I can't believe you said that on air.
Yeah, the pressure's on. One day you would like to do that on air.
I'm doing fine. I'm doing really great. Welcome, everyone. And no, I'm not Ewok rapping tonight.
Get ready. We might hit you up next week. And Chris Hales.
Morning, everybody. Bob, Brian, Lisa, Scott, who's there somewhere too. I'm sitting here down in Melbourne with possibly the strongest cup of coffee in the city at this point in time.
Nice.
Working my way through it. And glad to be here. There's a lot to talk about today.
There is. I'm wary of actually saying that at the beginning of the show, because last time we did that, we got cut off 20 minutes in. So
We did. Well, we'll take our chances, won't we? We'll just plow in.
And we do have Scott Bartle joining us again today, which is nice.
Hello, everyone.
Nice to have you,
Scott.
Hey, Scott.
Hi.
So we do have a lot to talk about now. I will start it off with just a little note that I got this morning. Where is it? Where did it go? Chris, you moved it. My message from James.
It's actually in our previous discussion. If you give me 30 seconds, I'll repost it for you. Got it?
I got it. Now, there's a young guy here in Australia by the name of James who has been one of the most active doers that I've come across. Ever since the courtesy notices went out, the foreclosure flyers, the press releases, he has been actively, weekly, if not daily in some cases, educating people right around the country. And I got a note from him this morning saying, "Hi Lisa, I was just told that the police are concerned about courtesy notices and our information sharing, and they are realising they have their head on the block. They have been discussing it in meetings." And I've asked James if he wouldn't mind coming on the show next week to tell you his story, because I think you'll find it quite motivational, to be honest. He's been doing a lot. He's been getting a variety of responses, some neutral, some claiming ignorance, and some very positive. So hopefully, James, if you're listening, you'll get that email invitation, and we'll see you next week. So I just wanted to share that. And I believe Scott has also got some courtesy notice response updates.
Yeah, actually, I've been in touch with James as well. He's cracking into all sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
So we had one. This is my father and I. He ended up sending a courtesy notice in to one officer here in Perth, and came the time. It's rather silly. The courtesy notice, when sent in response to one of their documents, was received by a letter that said, "Thank you for opting to take this matter to a court." Well, I don't recall anywhere in the courtesy notice where it said, "Please, can we take this to a court?" So completely didn't read that one. Anyway, so I volunteered to hand deliver this invoice into the police officers. So I walked in there and hand delivered it, and ended up speaking to the actual officer that was the one who was the recipient, and he promptly rejected it and proceeded to describe how UCC only applied in America, and it was the state law of Western Australia that was the highest law, and that was what he was following. So I thanked him all very nicely and all the rest of it, and went home and prepared an invoice, and Dad faxed that one off. And this time we sent also a copy of a single page, one of the UCC financing statements that showed the one of the big banks of Australia, ANZ, linked to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York with through the UCC. And this must be getting close to about 3 weeks ago now, maybe 2 weeks, and absolutely nothing heard. So I suspect that officer might have had his paradigm bent a little bit, and that may challenge the story that appeared to have been something that had just been given, like here, it doesn't apply, just tell people this. And this one document that gave an example of UCC being used in Australia kind of, I suspect, might have shattered his paradigm on that. So I thought that was useful.
That bank, just for non-Australians, that bank is one of the biggest in the country. And to see a document like that with a big corporation's name on it, clearly in bed with the Federal Reserve, clearly using UCC law, as Scott said, it's a bit of a paradigm bump he just ran over.
Well, I use the explanation. If you're going to use a system to record such an agreement or an arrangement, would you use, and we're talking about some massive amount of numbers in these documents, even though they're not expressed in numbers, it's expressed as all accounts, all paper, here and thereafter.
Actually, Scott, you might just explain to people what that filing had in it. It was one of those very significant ones that's kind of pokes you in the eye when you look at it.
Yes. I'll be brief on that. It's basically a security interest, or the Federal Reserve Bank of New York is registering a security interest in basically all the assets of the ANZ Bank here in Australia. And some of the things that it describes in there, I'll read it briefly, is all accounts, chattel paper, inventory, equipment, instruments, investment property, general intangibles, documents, and all assets now owned or hereafter acquired. Now, I'd use the word everything to encompass all of that sort of stuff, and it goes on to keep on talking about more stuff. So that sort of security interest registered by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York in one of the big banks of Australia.
So the question, you go ahead, sorry, Scott.
Yeah, using the UCC is basically, well, here's you're using the most robust form of law to record such an interest. So when you put that in front of a police officer that says, oh, here's the bank, and who knows, he might well have banked with ANZ himself, it doesn't matter. To show something like that so significant kind of blows the myth up very quickly that it's not used in Australia. And if that is the case, then who's going to write to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York and say, this document that you've got really is worthless, don't worry about it?
It doesn't apply here.
But the same goes. I mean, you've got the paperwork for Westpac, you know, the four leading banks, haven't you, for Australia?
Yep, and even Lloyd's of London. So that template seems to apply worldwide, and there's a list of hundreds of banks from whatever country you're from that it seems to use the same template. So I'd encourage people to have a poke around in that Washington DC registry and find these documents. And if you do find that you're getting feedback that says, no, UCC doesn't apply in this country, then drop one of those on their desk and say, well, are you going to write to the Federal Reserve and tell them that their document is worthless?
Bigger question, Scott. Who owns it, or who controls the ANZ? The shareholders, or this massive, former bank, the Federal Reserve, with a security interest over everything? Are those shares in the ANZ worth anything to the people who hold them?
Well, it'd be interesting to see who has priority call.
Mm-hmm.
Just that the data registration of this document, which this one's 2010. Some of the other banks go back to 2001, and they are linked off each other from going back in time. So I think in the whole part of the UCC is the registration and order in which you're registering these security interests. So I'd say the shareholders are going to take a lower priority in this instance.
So if the ANZ Bank had a problem, you'd suddenly find you actually had shares in the Federal Reserve and not the ANZ. Okay, because the Federal Reserve would just step in and take it over if something happened, I suspect. And given the Federal Reserve is either actually not existing anymore, according to some, or about to be converted into the Treasury, according to some, but either way, that's a mess. And if I was a shareholder, I'd be extremely unhappy because I doubt whether it appears in the annual report.
That's a very interesting question for the shareholder relations department.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Shareholders of ANZ and Westpac and other banks. What exactly is that piece of paper you've got mean?
Good question. I hope they start asking. So, Scott, you've also got the database that's being worked on. Do you want to share about that?
There's a bunch of guys beavering away feverishly in not all countries, but a large number of countries around the world. USA, France, Netherlands, New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, and there's more. Compiling a database with various individuals and their email addresses of those who've been perpetuating the slavery system. And the intent is to provide a centralized location where folk can contribute the address of an individual, and also I think the intent is to coordinate requests for any other volunteers who may choose to send a foreclosure flyer to that individual and advise them of the new landscape and the foreclosure of the banks and governments. So it's bringing a few people together to get. So
we'll have a database available, say, on the OPPT-IN.com website that anybody can go to from anywhere in the world and look for the names and email addresses relevant to their country.
At the moment, it's a standalone database, standalone website domain.
Oh, okay.
And there's an email address for a gentleman who's volunteered to field questions on that at the moment whilst it's being prepared. So that address is morpheus@absolute-data-exchange.com.
Can you type it into our little Skype room here, and I'll share it in the chat room, as well as the address of the website?
Yep, can do. So that's being put together at the moment, and I think they're looking for some additional volunteers in, I think, Greece and Cyprus to help with some of the immediacy of that situation over there.
Mm-hmm. And are there any other countries that you need volunteers that you can think of at the top of your head?
I will look at my little chat. I've got a link. I closed it down earlier on. Hang on, there we go. Got it. So looking for Spanish, German, and Dutch. Spain, Germany, and Holland, I think, is an extra one there, and Greece and Cyprus. So that's where there's a call for some additional contacts.
Great, thank you very much. Now, just to change subjects for a second, only to answer some questions that have come up in the chat room. Project 13, the name, the reason for that name is that 13 is the last holy prime and Fibonacci sequence that Caleb could find that all line up, is the number 13. Excuse me. So that's why it's called Project 13. Okay, what are we moving on to now? Scott, did you have anything else you wanted to share or cover off today?
There was a courtesy notice diagram?
Yeah, there's a diagram that we put together with regard to the courtesy notice, and I'll post in the link to that one as well. It's currently hosted up on Scribd, and I think BZ is working to get that one up online as well on the opt-in site. Basically what it is something that hopefully can simplify the administration in using the courtesy notices and invoicing. The principle is that if you have sent a courtesy notice to the originator of an action, say for example a loan at a bank, then you've sent one courtesy notice to the bank. They tend to engage multiple players beyond just the bank. They might get debt collectors, lawyers, process servers, courts, you name it. And rather than send each individual another courtesy notice, the same terms and conditions that were in the first courtesy notice actually apply to anyone else that's engaged downstream. And so this diagram just provides two separate scenarios. One is simply invoicing based on the courtesy notice sent to the individual, which for a lot of people is just a one-to-one kind of relationship. The second scenario, expressed graphically, is the possibility of invoicing a third party that became involved, hanging off the terms and conditions that were offered to the originator, say for example at the bank. And the effect this has is it keeps the matter on the desk of the originator. And I think people would be quite familiar with the tendency for a lot of these people who are enforcing this slavery system is they want to get it off their desk as soon as possible. So they engage the legal department or the lawyer or the debt collector, and they've shifted it from their desk to someone else's desk, and they breathe a sigh of relief and go, phew, got it off my desk, it's all done. By invoicing them for the action of the third party and keeping that matter on their desk, it doesn't leave their desk, and it encourages some further investigation into, well, what am I going to do to resolve this one? So that diagram might assist in providing some relief to that scenario.
Well, I just posted the link to it in the chat room, and I'll do it again. It's on the optin.com website under OPPT Courtesy Notice Frequently Asked Questions.
Brilliant.
Okay. Lovely.
Fantastic. Okay, that's all.
That's all from you? Okay. Okay, last week, Chris talked about a bond and oath that he had created and subsequently created a bit of a shitstorm, didn't you, Chris?
Yeah, I did. And look, we released that, and probably looking at the reaction that we got, there was more discussion we should have had about it on air, and the information on the website should have been more specific, because there was a couple of things about it that we just didn't emphasise enough about what we'd actually done. So we've taken a step. Can
you go back though? Go back to the beginning and just explain why you felt the need to create it in the first place.
The need actually came from Captain Derrill. He has a couple of people he's dealing with in the military who were kind of interested in seeing these things, asked me if I would write one. And I said yes, and I started to work on it, and we're going to talk in a minute about what's specifically in that and why. But once I'd actually written it, I thought, well, this is really forming the basis for the what could be a public servant bond and oath for the CVAC as well. So I proceeded to do that, and at that point, that was about, from a timing point of view, that was just before the show last week. So we thought we'd put them out there. But the thing that it led to, which is actually one of the key things I want to talk about this morning, is a third document which we're calling a declaration of absolute freedom. That was the actual sequence of events. And it turns out that really in terms of what's useful and what's really very usable for anyone who's following the OPP, the former OPPT's work, and is putting out there the message that I'm standing up, that's the one that we're going to say you should consider using. Now, if I've got a minute, I'll go through that concept.
Well, hang on. Let's go through this a little bit more sequentially. The protector bond and oath, because that's the one that got some people in a bit of a tiz. The way I see that document is very similar in a way to the courtesy notices. It's a tool to educate those in the military on a number of levels. To the fact that the bond and oath that they're currently under, or thought they were under, is actually an oath to a corporation, to a private entity, and that they actually are taking their orders ultimately from the UN. They didn't sign up to protect their country.
Precisely.
And or to protect their fellow countrymen. And if you looked at that bond and oath and compared it to the one you took, then questions are going to come up. So I see it as a beautiful education tool, and giving people the opportunity to go, well, who do I want to serve and protect?
Exactly. The military have been actually watching this very closely, so we're told. In fact, we're told that from multiple sources. Most of them didn't sign up to do what they're doing, and they didn't realise who they were signing up with. And for the most part, they absolutely took an oath and want to fulfil it in the most the most noble fashion that they can. That's why they're there. And this realisation, along with the fact that they realise that the corporatism that they're actually in the middle of has an incredibly negative effect on their whole society, let alone their family, knowing that they're in a position to actually make a difference, not being able to do anything about it. And there's something like the OPPT work comes along, and a whole new scenario is presented. Now, one of the most important things about these documents, particularly the bond and oath documents, is they're transition documents. They're tools to help us to move from the place we're at to the place where we'd like to be, which is where we don't need such documents, where we just work from an energy exchange point of view, and all this is past history. But
I'd like to speak about that a little bit, Chris.
Sure.
There's going to be a lot of tools that are coming out that are bridging tools that some people may want to or need to take advantage of because of where they're at in their particular situation and their understanding of what's transpired. Whereas others may not need to use some of those bridging tools because they can stand in their own. They're there, available, and it is completely voluntary. If someone wants to make use of one of those tools. And in particular, I thought it was interesting to note that oath and bond, when it comes to the protector, this is something that is very, very much so directed to the volunteers who would volunteer for the military service or that enforcement side of the military orders that were in the UCC filings. And for them, the whole idea of an oath and a bond is something that they can very much so relate to. So a lot of people, what is this and what, it's take things into context. These are bridging tools, and for those of them who it resonates with, they know what they're for.
That's it. I mean, this document's aimed at a very specific group of people whose higher calling is to serve in that capacity, and they would expect to make some sort of commitment like this, very much so. They'll look for this, and we wanted to make sure we had it. That's the reason that Captain Zeleny actually asked me to do it, so he had it in hand. So, if the people he's dealing with said, How do we sign in? This is it. We're ready. Now, in the future, would such a document be used for someone who is coming in as a protector? Probably not. Okay, so, and the other document's the same, the one that actually covers off on the CVAX. And look, just on the protector for a minute. In fact, overall, Scott and I recorded a detailed conversation last night, which is up on the website, which goes through how these documents are structured, the context of them, because all three of them have a specific context. The oath and bond for the protectors, the one we're talking about right at the moment. And you have to actually view the documents in that light. And of course, to use one of these is voluntary. You never have to do anything with this if you don't want to. As far as the protector oath is concerned, one of the critical things about it was that in the wording in the centre of the document, it actually makes a specific reference to the UCC order given to the military as part of the OPPT work in the UCC. I've linked it. Again, this is my oath and bond. This is the one that I felt would resonate with them. And I specifically linked it to that order because it's in that order that their instructions on how they are to behave is defined, how they are to not take life, but yet they're allowed to defend themselves, and they're to actually, basically, arrest and detain the people involved in the slavery system, and repossess, all the facilities there. I mean, it's a very, very significant thing, and we need to keep pointing back to that to make sure that this group of people who are acting on our behalf have a specific set of instructions, because that's the way the military works. They say, I'm here to do it. Tell me what you want, and we can point straight at that and go, that's what we want. Okay. As far as the psychology of it, it's something that this is something they will actually expect to issue when they actually commit to working for the one people. And it's the same with the oath and bond to the public servant. Now, this is again a transition document. The CVAX system specified in the original OPPT filings. Thank you, Reuben, the dog, in case you heard that. Just got barked at very high volume. The UCC filings that specified the CVAX also specified how people were to connect to them, which was a bond and oath as a public servant. Now, we haven't had conversations about the CVAX systems for a while. It'll start up again because, again, the CVAX systems will be a bridging tool for us. Our future is filled with incredible possibilities, and some of the stuff is absolutely, simply gobsmackingly amazing, and it's not here yet. So, as a preparation for taking a transitional step into a structure that's different to the one we're currently operating in, this is another document which we will have there for that moment, because we've got 7 billion people to help transition. This is our real task. Once we get past this whole thing becoming public, and we're starting to really see the cracks in the system, getting hints that the police are finding out, as James said, their heads on a block, etc. The military are working out, this is serious, because look at what Swissindo did. Things are really starting to actually show some shift, just a bit at the moment, which is incredibly encouraging. So what we have here is another document for a very specific context, for a very specific temporal location. In other words, it's context. It's relevant now and in the very near future. 2 years' time, I can't tell you what had happened and how we'll be operating. Hopefully we'll be under an energetic exchange. And the critical thing about both these documents is that these are my documents. Okay, these are the ways that in this context that I thought they could be structured. Now, at the top of the document it says, I am Eternal Essence Embodied Absent Limits. If you wanted to issue your own oath and bond, you can do it. You can completely rewrite this document. This is Chris's version of the oath and bond. Okay. People will also say, I poorly worded one part on the instructions and said you don't have to sign it if you don't want to. What I really meant was you don't have to use it if you don't want to. Because if you don't sign it, it's only a piece of paper. It could generate an interesting discussion, but it won't have the energetic content if you don't actually put your signature on it. So the oath and bond are really going to be for a fairly specific group of people who with a very, very specific desire to serve, who can rewrite and issue their own oath and bond should they choose to. These documents will be issued as Word files, fully editable. If the words resonate with you, you could use it exactly as it is. For instance, I was having a discussion with BZ Riga, and she said, I'm not that keen on the CVAC systems of assistance being on the Declaration of Absolute Freedom. I said, well, in your instance, you just delete it, put in exactly the words that you want. Okay, so remember that the oath and bond for the public servant and the protectors are for people who want to serve in specific capacities at this transitional point in time, and that you are completely free to rewrite these as you see fit. And the final one, which was I think should be, hopefully, really widely used by everybody, is what I chose to call Declaration of Absolute Freedom. Now, again, these are my words. This is what resonates with me. It's a Word file. You can do with it as you wish. Where there are references to the UCC down the bottom of the page, okay, because we've got, just use footnotes to actually create the links to those. The only thing I'd suggest is make sure that if you remove something that's got a footnote reference next to it, that you actually get rid of the footnote at the bottom of the page too, so that the document hasn't got some useless information at the bottom. Now, the Declaration of Absolute Freedom is exactly what it says. It's written from the Absolute. It's contextual in that it still actually refers to, in this instance, a couple of things in the UCC filings, not as many as the other documents. I wrote it that way because it's relevant to me now and brings in the things that interests me. For instance, I like the fact that it refers to CVAC systems because I support the notion we need a platform to springboard from. But if you prefer just to refer to the Universal Exchange, that's absolutely up to you.
So one thing I wanted to note is that all of these things are restatements of universal law. Universal law, which basically states that all of us are free to do what we will with full responsibility. All of us are free to do what we will with full responsibility. And to enunciate your full responsibility in your chosen doing, anyone can do. And like Chris said, if you want to create your own, and it doesn't have to be with just the enforcement. If you want to create an oath and bond to your dedication and your doing with education, feel free to do so. It is stating your I am statement as to what it is you wish to bind yourself in your doing, to remain completely transparent and fully responsible.
Yeah, that's actually a really important point, Bob, and Scott and I go over that aspect in detail on the recording, and I'll just touch on it here for a moment. The authority to issue these things comes from you. The bottom of each of these documents, it says this: this declaration is prepaid, pre-authorized and pre-approved by the signatory in full responsibility, liability and transparency. In other words, you're saying, I issue this because I'm in charge of me. And I'll just read you out there's a relevant passage in here in the That I Be section of this document. It says, that I be, absolutely free and free of debt, owner of my body, value and labour, a custodian and steward of earth. End of story. This is like your personal declaration of independence, and it's written from the absolute position, almost entirely. It's the way this works, and these are my words. This is what I put down on paper, and there is no further that you can go. You're not actually part of any structure. There's no statutory authorities involved here at all, no fictions, no man-made stuff. There's just you as eternal essence making a statement about yourself to the rest of the one people. And this document actually, it speaks as much to the old system as to make a statement to everybody. It is entirely based in universal law, and the issue of is this a contract? In terms of the oath and bond ones, there was questions about is this a contract? Is this a contract? If you take the old system view of the bond and oath as having a two-way connection, you could argue that it's a contract, but that we are free to actually reassign, repurpose that old terminology. And in my version of the bonds and oaths, I chose to use the term bond and oath because they resonate with people who, that resonates with me, resonate with people who want to actually give what I consider to be a gift of energy to the people. The Declaration of Absolute Freedom is simply a statement saying, I am free, and here's why. And I'll read the I am statement out of the Declaration of Absolute Freedom too, because these are my words, that I am serving the one people with my being, eternal essence embodied, absent limits, doing always for the greater good of the one people, greater good of Earth, manifesting a new civilization, and this in all moments of now. That's how I feel. So if you want to change that or add to it, you can do it.
Now, just an update, Chris, is that the Declaration of Absolute Freedom has up-to-date directions, and people are already completing them and sending them into the special email address provided.
Brilliant. Yeah.
It is happening.
Yeah. Well, see, that's what we're doing, and our plan for it is this, or our suggestion for it. Okay. There's really several things that can be done with this. You can pop it in a frame and put it up on the wall, or you can put it on a fridge magnet, pop it on your fridge, and just when you pass by, it'll just remind you, that this is how you feel and that things are going to change. You could put these in with your courtesy notices. You can put them in with a foreclosure flyer. Anytime you actually address the system, per se, you can actually put one of these in there, signed. It's your statement of who you are. It doesn't oblige you to anything. That one is not in any way an arrangement with anybody else. It's a statement of your position in this universe. And if you do it with the right intention, that's going to add an enormous amount of energy to the whole equation of what the courtesy notices are doing when we inject them in the system. And we're seeing effects coming in the system now where they're realizing that Houston, there is a problem. So using this document, as you will, the Declaration of Freedom, one of the other things that we're planning on doing is when you download it, and we're still working on that, folks, it's a work in progress. When you download it, we're going to ask you, if with your permission, to give your name, your geographic region, and that will end up displayed as a list on the website to show that you've stood up, put your hand up and said, yep, I'm here, I'm in absolute, and I know what I'm here for. And what we're hoping is if we get lots and lots of people putting it up there, we're going to have a scroll that goes for pages and pages and pages, and it's from all corners of the planet. And that is to provide physical, visible evidence to anyone looking at the website that the one people are standing up, which is one of the things that's going to be happening in this whole process, is everyone's going to stand up and say, what did we just do? Well, let's not do that anymore. Let's go and do what we want to do.
If you really want to raise the bar, you can get a tattoo. I can get the courtesy note. You can get the oath and bond tattoo. Some body parts. We'll bring you on the show. We can talk about it.
Yeah, we could have an eye. You could get the eye in the circle for the Universal Value Exchange. You could get that tattooed on your butt, Brian.
There we go.
It's a nice little symbol.
Don't do it on your forehead, people. I've seen tattoos on foreheads. Doesn't work.
And don't post it on Facebook, please.
If you are going to do anything on your forehead, don't do it in the mirror.
Yeah. So, Scott, have I left anything? Scott, have I left anything vital out of this discussion at this stage?
No, I think that's covered it pretty well. And if anyone wants the detail, they can have a listen to that audio session that we recorded.
Yeah. Yeah, we went through the whole thing in detail.
Which can be found on the website under the One People Oath and Bond, as well as the Declaration of Absolute Freedom. When you go onto the website for those pages, you'll be able to access the audio that they're referencing.
Yeah, and just remember, folks, fully editable Word files, you can do with them as you wish.
You can use them exactly as is if it resonates with you, or use it as a platform to...
Yeah. Yeah, the other thing... Yeah, one of the things that I do want to specifically mention, my feeling about the Protector Oath and Bond and the Public Service Oath and Bond is they're actually an energy gift. You're actually gifting your energy, your value to the people for a period of time that suits you. Okay, and the arrangements, you can put in whatever terms and conditions down in the I am section. I called it an energetic promissory note. And it's completely under your control because you wrote the terms and conditions. So it's something people should be very comfortable with come the day. And we'll leave it at that. Thanks for everybody for listening.
I think another good way of looking at it too, Chris, is it's like an intention. How powerful intentions are when you send an intention out into the universe. And, when you sign that thing, it's like it's a vow. You're setting an intention. And, interesting things manifest when you do that with a very powerful intent. So it doesn't need to even necessarily be given to anybody. I mean, just signing it and looking at it. You're paying your energy into it, and that's a powerful thing.
Now, while we're speaking of that, if Lisa doesn't mind me giving a moment more to this, there's a conversation that I had with Julian Wells up on the website. You'll find it. It's actually on a separate page because it's a fairly significant conversation, because Julian's been monitoring sort of the energetic build-up as we've gone through this whole process the last 4 months, and in as much detail as he can. And these processes don't give you absolute details. They give you trends. They give you relative sizes and relative sort of time frames for things. It's interpretive, and I do trust Julian's interpretations because he's been quite accurate so far. But when he looked at the energy surrounding this idea of the one people standing, he was seeing a type of energy he's never seen before. Something that kind of spreads at the drop of a hat, and in fact doesn't really matter where you're at, what your views on life are. This energy is going to actually get to you. And what I realized as we were talking that he was looking at was something that we could consider to be virtually a deep programming tool. Because when you start talking to people about, hey, there's just us here, there's just one people here, all this other stuff's crap, and all we need to do is get together and get on with it. It cuts across programming. It's a deprogramming tool. It actually cuts across all the divisions that have been thrown at us for the last 100 or more years. Ethnicity, political, religion, all of those things that have just been dividing us and weakening us and distracting us and getting us into a mindset where they can just keep walking all over us. They all disappear when you start talking about this meme. And that energy that Julian's seeing is a direct reflection of that. And it's pretty much unstoppable. And if you have a listen to the conversation that we had, it's quite fascinating. And the second part is also fascinating because he was seeing six main possibilities in terms of the next month or two, and they all ended with a significant shift in our favour. And there were approximately 6 of them, and he describes each one that he saw and gives his best interpretation of it. It's not fixed in stone, folks. He was seeing sort of major trends, if you like, and 5 out of the 6 involved the Swissindo concept, Very, very interesting, and that's why I think what we need to do when Brian talks about intention, let's lend our intention to the success of Swissindo in standing up and using the asset they have control of to actually help shift the system, after which time we can proceed without that asset. We can actually move forward with just our own value. And the good thing was that the only difference between the scenarios was how bumpy the road was. At the other side of it, we got what we wanted, which was a shift towards away from the old system into something completely new. And I think you'll find it very encouraging and very interesting. So have a listen to that. It's not a long conversation, but I put it up just by itself because it was so interesting.
Where is that? Where can people find that, Chris? I didn't even know. I listened to that this morning. It was really good. I didn't even know it was something that was put out for everyone to listen to.
Yeah, it's actually on the OPPT-IN website. I'm
just trying to clarify that because I was sent a link that I posted in the chat room, but people are saying that's actually an old link to an old previous conversation.
I'll put it in the... Oh, no, hang on. I just clicked on it instead of copying and pasting.
Can I post that on the blog?
Yep. Just hang on a second.
No, apparently it's been... Apparently that is the new conversation, that link that I put in. Which I will do
well,
again.
I'll put it here in the chat anyway, so anyone who needs to use it for this chat. But yeah, look, there's interesting things happening, folks. There's symptoms of things really starting to move, popping out all over the place. And I hope people have fun. If you want to, what I'd like to see is people actually really writing their own declarations of absolute freedom, and here's why. If you rewrite part of this and it makes you feel better about it, that energy you generate will be stronger. So I really encourage you, if there are words you really want to be in there, put them in there, because it's your statement, it's no one else's, it's coming from your authority. End of story. So have some fun with it.
Yeah, and just to make an announcement, because a lot of people are asking, Heather did say she would try and join us in the second hour. Internet willing. Everything is based on internet willing. So we'll see how we go. Dee's just joined us, though.
Hey, Dee.
You there, Dee?
She's unmute, Dee.
Unmute. You know, that mute button gets more of us in trouble more often than anything else.
How are you, darling?
Other than being a frazzled today, I'm pretty damn good.
So you're in the process of moving. Are you still in the old house?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Packing boxes and being ruthless with sorting stuff to go and, you know.
I don't envy you. I hate moving, but I love getting into a new place. Take cleaning up and getting out of the old one.
I've moved up. I've moved now so many times to so many places, so many distances that I can move in my sleep, really. It's just time consuming, that's all.
And I'm sure you do.
Actually, I do a lot of stuff in my sleep.
Especially lately.
So, how are things in your world? Have you got any little bits of news you can share with us? Ooh, straight face and serious voice. What happened?
Yes. I had an interesting conversation today, and I'm not capable, I'm not allowed, I cannot possibly give details because it would seriously compromise my source. But as much as we all know how legitimate the OPPT filings are and all of that, it's nice to sometimes get told by somebody very, very high up just how legitimate they are. And to be assured that they know what's going on. So that's all I can say on that little topic. Just suffice to say that I was very impressed with what was said of how it is all moving forward. And they know it's all moving forward.
And what about in RV world?
Oh, God, it's insane right now. I have been on Intel calls for hours today and yesterday, like hours. I have got almost no packing done today because step away from the computer for 5 minutes and it would ring again, or my phone would ring. So, things are very, very hot and heavy, very, very exciting at the moment.
Well, one of the last updates you gave us was that, the whales, as you called them, those who were heavily, heavily invested, had been paid out in a sense of, there's figures in a bank account, but they can't touch them.
Yep.
And so the next level down from the whales, are they in the same position?
Yep. Exactly.
And what about level tier 3, so to speak?
Tier 3 is up to bat.
Oh, okay.
So what's tier 2 called? You got the whales. Do we have kind of like the dolphins and then the tuna fish?
They're uppity ups and the uppity ups and the power brokers and the people who are movers and shakers in RV land. Let's just call them that. So, but you watch them very carefully because certain ones have certain roles that they are assigned to play. So everyone watches certain ones of them very, very carefully to see where they are and where they're going and all that good stuff. So they've all been where they were supposed to be, and they've all done what they were supposed to do. And lots more action going on behind the scenes in that whole double dealing, dipping world of, new financial systems, which is such a crock. Anyways, I'm sorry. I'm so jaded now by the whole thing that everything I hear, I'm just like, oh yeah, this is just so transparent.
Well, how many years have you been involved in the RV thing, Dee? It's a long time, isn't it?
No, not that long. Heavily, like on the Intel side, about 1.5 years.
Okay.
But yeah, it's I haven't been involved in and I got into the Intel side of it purely because I started to recognize the amount of bullshit. This info being tossed around. I was like, I can do better than this. I know I can find sources and find out my own information, which I did. Hence the fact I am where I am today. And that's why I get really, really snarky when people want to question Intel and they want to, tell us who your sources are. No, not going to do that. If you don't like my Intel, go find your own sources. That's what I did.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I love how you can never really say, Dee, tell us how you really feel. Because
well, and you only ever get how I feel.
There's no BSing around with Dee. You just want to know. You want to know something. We want to know what's really going on. Call Dee and ask her. Guaranteed she's going to tell you exactly how she feels first time.
Yep.
No monkey business.
No.
Yep, in fact, Dee can sort out most of your problems. I've discovered very quickly.
With a boot, usually.
Yes.
Dee needs her own show. It's going to be called the Ask Dee Anything Show.
Well,
it's going to be called
I've been known as Dr. D for a long, long time. You ask Mushi. I have been Dr. D for a long time.
Well, your show could either be called Dr. D or the Steel Tip Boot Cap.
Yeah, that's right. Here's my boot. No. Come on, guys. I'm a nice person. I'm Susie Sunshine. You should know that. Right, all you guys in the RTS Skype room who I ripped a new asshole to yesterday, but I am Susie Sunshine.
Oh, there you go.
Usually.
Okay, Brian, it's your turn. Let's bring you out. What have you...
God.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, God.
Do you have any Swissindo news?
Well, Swissindo... The biggest update we can give on Swissindo is very actively doing their thing right now. I think one of the biggest misconceptions that originally came out when the whole Swissindo story broke was that, the OPPT and Swissindo have this big, global domination plan going on, and we're in cahoots and we're in bed together and we're working hand in hand on major new developments. I mean, the UCC files were exactly what the Swissindo people needed in order for them to be able to issue their executive order and to allow them to move forward on everything that they've been working on for the last few hundred years. So they're very much moving forward right now, as from the information that I'm getting. We have one person that's in direct communication with them pretty frequently, but she's someone that does want to stay private at this point. And so they actually, the Swissindo people publish all of the information as it breaks through their websites and blog sites. And basically all I know and what I was told right before this show was to research whatever is out there that they're putting out, and we'll know more, and as we know it, we'll share it. But right now, as far as I understand it, Swissindo is very much moving forward in everything that they have been developing, and there's nothing really new that's major to report at this moment.
So the Swissindo group have been quite transparent in everything so far. They do post everything that they do. On their
they put it all out there. You know, they beat us to it. I mean, they started putting everything out, and then, you know, before myself personally, as being listed as a media contact, had any time to do my own personal due diligence. And, you know, in the beginning, I was extremely skeptical, and you know, after doing a little bit of homework and looking at how much work had been done from the people that have been working on figuring out who this group is for the last 8 years. I mean, we have one of our contacts is a historian in Indonesia, and she's been studying them and following them and has sent me pages and pages and pages of copious notes of all of the R&D that she's been doing on this group for years. I've published it, but there's honestly so much there, and it's not extremely organized that, you know, I don't know if it would do a whole lot of good in putting those notes out. But what it did for me is it tells me that, you know, we didn't just kind of jump into this thing and say, oh, you know, they sent us these documents, here's what they say, we're going to go ahead and take it for what it is and put it out there, and we're all in. You know, that's kind of what it appeared like in the beginning. But once I started to talk to people, the people that have been working on this for quite some time, it got to be a whole lot more concrete for me. And just like I said in the Morning Brew show on Wednesday, I mean, the story has yet to be told. You know, people want right now what they want is something to stick their teeth into. They want to see something. They want to be able to turn on the news and watch it. And one thing I learned from the citizens hearing on disclosure today, which we can talk about next if you want, Lisa, is they really gave a detailed account. Stephen Greer and his colleagues gave an extremely detailed proof-backed account as to how the mainstream media is so unbelievably manipulated. And because one of the people on the panel, they said, I'm going off topic, but just to come back to prove a point, they said, why haven't we seen any of this on the news? And so they went into a whole tangent of why we're not at a place right now where you're going to see any of these types of caliber stories on mainstream media because it's so incredibly important, or excuse me, it's so incredibly monitored and controlled. But I was having a conversation the other day where we were talking, and the discussion was basically talking about how crazy it would be if all of the most relevant and important news stories were actually covered on mainstream media. There would be a global holy shit factor thing going on because so much would come out into the open, and it would just blow the lid off some of the most important things that are happening to the world right now. Disclosure and what's going on with Stephen Greer's work and the Galactics being one, what the One People's Public Trust has been doing being, you know, an easy number two, what Swissindo's got going on being a number three, and all the incredible things that are happening around the world. So
I make the notion right now, I reject the term mainstream media because they are no longer relevant and they are no longer mainstream. We are what is the news. And for any of you who are tuning into this station right now, this is where you're tuning in to get your information. So this is what's mainstream for you. And I'm putting out the call right now. Everyone who can hear and resonate with what we're trying to do, let's show them our doing. Put your oath and bonds out there. Create the space for the projects that you want. Put your name, sign your oath, you know, in complete transparency and liability, and create the space. Now's the time for us to start our doing. Let's answer and show all the world, especially those who are doing in the Swissindo, what we can do as the one people. Because now it's time for us to get up and start and let them know this is what we're going to do. We're going to start to restore the environment. We're going to create the space. If you know of a place or a land, that needs to be restored, that you've got your eye on a project, put your oath and bond, and this is what your intention is. Create the space. Let's show them what we can do.
Yeah, Daryl just came up with a suggestion of things that people can do if you're so inclined to do. Now that the Provost Marshals have been given the UN order, and they're also, as a result of that, aware of the...
Hello, everyone. Can you hear us again?
I can hear you.
Back. Okay.
We're back.
While there.
Yes, we're back in the chat room too. Lovely.
Awesome.
Oh, good.
Ooh.
Good. Does anyone know at what point we got... Where did we get cut off there?
Provost Marshals.
Oh, we got to read what Daryl wrote regarding.
Let's just recap for a second, because people may not understand. If they missed that part of the call a couple of weeks ago, they may not understand what that is. Is that the Swissindo sent orders to the UN, military orders. Mm-hmm. So now, as one of my favourite comedians of all time, Robin Williams, once said many years ago, the UN is like a traffic cop on Valium. So anything given to them is going to take a great deal of time, because they're all going to, argue over this. So as a countermeasure, the same orders were sent through Brian and Daryl to the Provost Marshals, so that it would also go up through the system, and try and get the conversation going, get people asking questions, applying the pressure. So that's what's going on. That's what's in reference when people say these documents or orders going to the Provost Marshals. So I just wanted to give that background.
Yeah, so what Daryl suggested was that now that the process seems to have got a little bit of traction, that people actually could, if they so desired, take the same block of information, because you can download that document from, it's on the OPPT site, the actual UN, order to the UN from Swissindo, and you can print it out and put it with your own personal declaration of absolute freedom, should you so desire, hand it to the military police at the local military base, if you're near one, and just tell them that they should, check it out and pass it on to their superiors. What he's suggesting is putting it into the system, further down. The military police work for the Provost Marshals, so it'll wend its way up again to the Provost Marshals as a kind of secondary reminder. Okay, and that was one thing I said before someone pulled the plug. The other thing was that I view the whole process as being stunningly fast, because this kind of it doesn't get any higher level than this, folks. Moves like this take months and years to organise. They have to go through multiple, as Lisa said, traffic cops on Valium. If you can imagine a long street with 4 or 5 traffic cops all on Valium, not just one. That's the sort of stuff that happens at those high levels. They put it out within about 3 or 4 weeks of the OPPT stuff actually coming live online. So they saw that and went, wow, we've been waiting for this because we'd like to change the system. This is my impression of what they're saying. We'd like to change the system, but everywhere else we look, there's just a bunch of brokers and crooks who want to actually just create a new version of the same mess. And they looked at the OPPT stuff and said, well, this is a return to something clean, something that's not corrupted, and run by the people. Okay?
One thing we can talk about. Sorry to interrupt you, Chris, because a couple people have mentioned in the Skype chat room is how can it be going through the UN when the top levels are so corrupt? And we might want to speak to that a little bit because it keeps coming up. First of all, it's a UN order, but we're talking about dealing with the Provost Marshals here, and provost marshals are not directly part of the UN. I can only speak to my take on how it works as far as the UN goes, because the UN as an organization has a very bad stigma that's attached to them. It's very puts a really bad taste in people's mouth because of many of the stories that have been floating around the alternative media world for years now. And the point that I made when I originally published the YouTube video that showed that the United States military takes their orders from the UN, the comment that I had made is something I still believe, but we're going to have to wait and see how this whole thing pans out. So we're not hanging our hat on everything that Swissindo doing as if it's the do-all, be-all answer to all of our prayers. It's just one of the arms of events that are occurring amongst many. And the point that I made when I put out the release was that when you take the corrupted leaders that are calling the shots as far as the UN goes, what you're left with is UN soldiers. And if a UN soldier could be just your average guy that has taken his own oath and bond to protect and serve against, against enemies both foreign and domestic. And we don't know exactly how everything is panning out as far as the UN involvement, so I can't speak about it in such a way that is going to ease people's minds that there is or is not any shady business that is still going on as far as the UN goes. But we're talking about right now the provost marshal system. And the provost marshal system, there's a provost marshal in every single state in the United States, and there's also a provost marshal, as far as I understand, in every single country. These are the organizations that are now being noticed and notified, which is essentially the equivalent of them receiving a courtesy notice and letting them know what has happened with the foreclosure flyer, with the UN executive order, with the military order put out by the One People's Public Trust. And it's to let them know what's going on so they can circulate it amongst their inside their own house to figure out what now that they're going to do with it, considering the ramifications that are global in scope and how they're going to now move forward. So these are the kinds of conversations that are happening behind closed doors that are very similar, as I have to assume, like the story that we heard from the contact in Australia about what's going on in the police department. So all of these are parts of the process. There's a lot of speculation going on. You got to remember, speculations and assumptions are opinions. Everybody's got one, and some can be right and some can be wrong. But until certain things start developing more and start coming out in the open for everybody to see, people are chasing their opinions right now. And at this point, let's kind of hold the energy and the intention for everything to move forward in the proper direction that's going to be in the best interest for all of humanity, and hold that space for that being the case of what can and will manifest, because something is going to give soon, and on a lot of different levels most likely, and there's no reason to pay any fear energy into what's unfolding whatsoever, because all you're doing is you're putting the energy out there for something from in a negative light to happen, when what really needs to happen right now is everyone to band together and hold the intention for all of this to unfold without casualty and in the best interest of everyone. So that's my response, my long-winded response to the concerns regarding the UN.
Can I just jump?
Yeah, of course, Dave.
Yeah, jump in. I'd like to finish what I was saying.
Did I cut you off? Sorry about that, Chris. There's a lot.
Oh, that's fine. No, you're cool. You're cool. Yep. Go, Dee.
No. Go ahead. I'll sit in the corner.
Oh no. Look, I'll just finish my statement, and I'll add just a little bit to what Brian was saying, just a little bit of detail, that these things are like starting up a giant ship. You know, when that ship gets under steam, it takes a while for the propellers to get traction to move the whole thing forward. But when it's moving forward, you don't want to be standing in front of it. Now, we've seen the start of that process. We've seen essentially the document that hits the startup button, which was really an order from the top of the system, as we understand it. And we've been peeling layers off the system for years. Everyone in the Truther movement has been peeling layer, finding out this, finding out that, and there's another door, then there's another door. What we're finding is that deep inside the system, there is a nominal king of kings. Okay, and this appears to be a hereditary title. It's a family. I think this is my opinion, who actually has, it would appear, literal ownership of the United Nations and other corporations. Now, we're in a corporate system. The United Nations is a corporation.
Were.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. We were in the system. United Nations is a corporation, and it just got an order from the boss. Now, the boss is somewhat of at a distance, but it's still the boss. And inside the United Nations, yes, it's a mess. It's just a bunch of people, all trying to carve their piece out of the pie. So the orders, no doubt, causing great ruckus in the United Nations. The reason for passing it through the provost marshals was to ensure that the key people inside the military system also knew what was going on, because the provost marshals are the senior legal people in the military system. And we didn't have the resources to research the document and work out all the ins and outs of it, because these documents exist only once every 50 or 60 years when these major negotiations and shifts start to take place. So that was one of the reasons that it was put back to the provost marshals, because they're obliged to pass it up the chain to those key military people who might never otherwise have heard about it, because it's jammed up in the Security Committee at the United Nations, being tossed around. Everyone trying to work out what it means for them, rather than trying to sort it out on behalf of us, the people. And that's the usual mess at the UN, unfortunately. So that's the process that I think is going on. I don't think we'll get a huge amount of news until it really goes pop, as Brian said, and because something has to give. We'll get little bits and pieces, but the moment it kind of hits that level, because the governments of this world, the corporate governments of this world, operate in secrecy and they operate deceptively, which is everything we're trying to change. They're doing their thing, but they've been called to account. They're going to have to act to actually kind of remove themselves out of the situation for a lot of them. So you can imagine they're not too happy. But the fact that we're getting anything positive at all coming back is extraordinary. It's great.
The system itself is choking on itself.
Yeah.
This whole Ouroboros, the serpent eating its own tail. This is what we're seeing happening, because anybody who's working in the system, they realize something is up. They're being asked to, take one day off a week where they're not getting paid for. People are getting laid off. A lot of in the court system, they're not taking new cases. Protocols being broken everywhere, and you're seeing literally the whole system just shaking apart. And they're looking for direction. Nobody seems to know what's going on. Nobody has any answers. We are the ones that are telling them what's going on. Mm-hmm. So these courtesy notice, this information that we're sharing, what we're putting into the system, we're letting them know what's going on. And so because the ones who are at the very, very top, they don't want to share. They don't want us to know. They don't want their subordinates to know. And this is why there's this whole media blackout. They're not sharing that information because they want to keep the system going. But as we're sharing this information and we're putting it out there, and you're sharing that information with those who you notice and those who you inform, it is starting to get people to question, well, really? Are we really working for a corporation? Is this true? And they're asking their superiors, and their superiors are asking their superiors. And now the ones who are at the top are basically sitting around looking at each other. What do we do? Am I getting the picture right, Dee?
Yeah.
Or?
Yep.
Yeah.
Right there.
You are.
Now, guys, we are trying to get hold of Heather.
I've been trying, guys, for the last 45 minutes, and I just can't get her. And we had some really... You want to talk about funny? I was passing some intel back and forth with Heather with stuff that she got and then stuff that I got, etc. And Everything on art, we had a lovely chat this morning. It was clear as anything. As soon as we started talking about a certain person, and we don't want to lose the show, so I'm not going to mention that person's name just in case they do it to us again. And she fell offline. I fell offline. It was hysterical. We could not call back. So then,
does it rhyme with Caleb Grinner?
No.
Okay.
And,
well, speaking of Caleb Grinner, okay, Project 13. Let's go there because it's been put out. There is a post on the American Kabuki site, I believe also on Dee's Removing the Shackles, and also on the optin.com site.
Hey, don't forget about my site, too.
And Brian's site.
Oh, it's on yours, of course. Brian's blog spot. It's Brian Kelly's blog spot. Sorry.
Brian Kelly's blog.blogspot.com. Thanks, Lisa. I appreciate the plug.
That's quite the mouthful. Say that fast 3 times. Okay.
Lisa, if we're talking about this, we could actually talk a little bit about the citizens' hearing on disclosure, which we haven't covered yet, which people will find extremely interesting. Brian did
earlier.
Did Brian talk about that, or was that in the pre-show chat?
I tied it into my story with Swissindo, but I didn't actually talk about some of what I saw go down on the watching the live stream on Citizens Hearing for Disclosure Day. I could probably cover it in 3 or 4 minutes.
Yeah, I'd do that because it is really, really prescient. What you got to realize, the system's being pushed. Its secrecy, its cover-up is being pushed from all edges, being hemmed in. So yeah, a bit of information would be terrific.
Okay, so anybody that's not familiar with the Citizens Hearing that we're talking about, the Citizens Hearing on Disclosure, which I believe is hosted by the National Press Club, was the mastermind behind it was a guy named Stephen Bassett. And on the panel, you can pay for the next 5 days, today included. Obviously today's session is over, but for the next 4 days, you can pay to watch live streaming. I believe it's 8 hours a day. And it's set up like a official Congress-type style venue panel where you got Stephen Greer, Stephen Bassett, and a handful of other people that are representing the truth movement and disclosure. And then you have, I believe, 6 retired Congress people. Some of those Congress people have just retired within the last couple of months. And so now, considering they don't have to worry about losing their jobs, they have agreed to sit on a panel to hear out Stephen Greer and his panel on evidence that they have to support not only the existence of extraterrestrials, but that they're here operating within our society on the ground. And so I only caught about 2 hours of it today, but it was fascinating. I think the greater majority of these particular Congress people, you have to assume that they're pretty open-minded for doing this thing, but they also went into it with the mindset of I'm going to need to see a whole lot of hard evidence and hear a whole lot of convincing in order for me to believe that the claims are valid and are real. So I caught the end of it, so I think I probably caught the most exciting part. But Stephen Greer and his team did an absolutely stellar job at providing all sorts of data and intel and information to support how compartmentalized the military-industrial complex is, how little the presidents have as far as the knowledge that they have in regards to some of these black project type of goings-on as far as at the top levels of the military. You know, back in the Eisenhower days, I guess they knew it all. And as you come to present time, the presidents know less and less. And there is actually some evidence that was shared in regards to Bill Clinton giving one of his top guys the mission to go to Area 51 to find out if there was actually a crash site there, as well as find out what the real reason was behind Kennedy being assassinated. So some really amazing stories came out during this time, and toward the end of it, the organizer, Stephen Bassett, actually got a standing ovation by everybody in the room, including all the people that were there to be kind of witnesses to the event, or the spectators, or the people that had tickets, or what have you. The whole panel that are fighting for the disclosure movement, and every single congressperson. Standing ovation at the end of day one. It was absolutely incredible to watch. I mean, this guy was in tears because he could see all his hard work coming to fruition the way that they really hoped it had. They thought it was going to take 5 days to get the buy-in from some of these congresspeople. One of the congresswomen, I believe her name was Congresswoman Carolyn Kilpatrick. It was her turn to ask a question, and she said, "I don't have a question," and I wrote this down because it was so powerful. She said, "I just have my closing comments that I'll add," and she said, "All these people that are saying that ETs are going to overtake us, they're not going to overtake us. We're going to work with them. The sooner we get it done, the better off we'll all be." This is coming from someone in Congress, and everyone's just like. And then once I think once the other Congress people saw how much the work, because I mean we're talking about 20, 30, 40 years of work from some of these guys like Stephen Greer and pushing this disclosure movement forward, how much work they have done to see this through, and how many whistleblowers ranging from top-ranking military officials to people that have actually worked in crash sites, and just I think he has 200-plus whistleblowers. A lot of these facts and this data were shared in the Sirius documentary, but just praising all of the work that they had done and all collectively agreeing that something has to change in order for this to break into the mainstream media and for the United States to not only release all their files on UFO sightings, but release all of the data they have of government involvement with the various types of ET projects and black projects that are currently still under lock and key. $3.80 for a five-day pass. I highly, highly recommend watching it.
Yeah.
Thank
now
you.
just to add to what Brian has said, I met Stephen Bassett a couple of years back. The guy's he was in Melbourne doing a presentation, which I went to, which was fascinating. Been living in a suitcase for about 20 years to lead to this moment, and he's done an absolutely incredible job of pulling it all together. And this is disclosure by the people for the people. This is not a government exercise. I don't know where he got the money from, but he managed to put this together, and it's actually a repeat on a much larger scale of what Stephen Greer did in 2001, which was called the Disclosure Project, and which was a one-day event, and that had a stunning impact in the alternate media. But in the mainstream media, they got about 2 paragraphs of a snide comment from one particular paper. That was it, and the room was packed with news people for the whole day, and they said nothing. Now we've got a panel of highly esteemed people, and an even bigger bunch of witnesses talking in far greater detail for a 5-day period. And I've just total hats off to the amount of work those guys have done. I don't know how they managed to pull it off, but I'm really glad they did.
There's a petition. Real quick in closing, Lisa, and then this will do it. There's a petition on change.org. If you go to change.org and you search call to urge CNN, Fox, NBC to livecast the citizen hearing on disclosure, you can do a search for citizen hearing on disclosure. I'm sure it'll come up. It needed 2,500 signatures today. It just hit the goal of 2,500 signatures for CNN, Fox, NBC to livecast the citizen hearing on disclosure. So a lot of people know about this thing, and if it doesn't get any major media attention, then it's going to be very obvious that the mainstream media, the MSM or whatever Bob creatively decided to call it, I couldn't remember. If they don't cover it now, it's just going to be totally obvious that they're trying to avoid it. So hats off to all those guys for pulling that off. It's incredible.
Yeah, corporate propaganda media.
Yep. In my Chris accent. Yep.
Now, I know this is probably going to be frustrating for a lot of you who've been wanting to hear about it, but in terms of Caleb's Project 13, what's been posted on American Kabuki's website, I personally don't have anything to add to. You guys know as much as we do. What's been shared with us then gets shared on these various websites. Dee, I'm going to ask you, though, do you know anything over and above what was posted?
Basically, Caleb is, I believe, in final stages of testing of this new, what do you call it? Beyond a program. It's
going to come out in stages, isn't it? From what I understand.
I don't know. And that's the thing. Right now, it's been kept very, very quiet as to how it's going to be launched. And I think that's being done for the purpose of, kind of not announcing it to the world until it's set, until it's up and ready to go. I do know that, like everything's just bustling on it. I know that they're in the last stages of testing. There's several apps that he's created or his team has created so it can be used on an iPhone or Droid phones, etc.
So let me add to that real quick. Okay. Just real quick. The final day of everything that he needed to do, supposedly last time I heard, was April 30th, which is tomorrow. But everything is launching, like officially, like balls to the wall. Excuse my terrible thing using that to try to explain it, but it's the best I can do. In May. And then that question kept coming up in the chat room. So it's going to happen in May. It could happen the first week of May, second week of May. Nobody really knows, but it's going to be in May.
It's not going to be the first or second week of May. That Heather, we talked about that. She was like, it is not going to be the first week of May. Very slim chance of it being the second week of May. So, as I said, by the end of May, it should all be done and up and running.
So I'm just going to read a quote out of the American Kabuki blog post, which is that Project 13 is launching as the RUV Tools of Assistance. It combines and changes the functions formerly provided by harvesting tools such as Facebook, UCC, purported departments of licensing, purported banks, etc., all in one, and operates transparently and universally, not just globally, internationally or nationally. The biggest recalibration tool of the RUV exchange is that each embodiment is solely responsible for their being, value, and doing. All that they be, do, all their value, etc., is controlled solely by their self on their iPage, transparently for all to know, engage with, and deliver by free will choice. Okay? So I did see a reference to there being a bit of a, I don't know if registration is the right word. Well, I know it isn't, but I don't know what the right word is. Of lodging, perhaps recording your use of what we would currently consider registering a vehicle or, your house and things like that. So, but it won't be ownership. We've been talking about that ever since, from the beginning of the year, the whole concept of ownership.
And it's a big one.
It is a big one.
Yeah. Lisa, there's a question that's come up from the chat room, which I forgot to cover before, about what we're doing with the oaths and bonds. And if I can take 1 minute, I'd like to actually give a response to that.
Okay.
Okay. Now, there's 3 documents. There's the Declaration of Freedom, which we discussed enough that you know what to do with it. For the oath and bonds, at the moment, they're the public service bond. What we want you to do is, if you're interested in using that, by all means download one, change it to what you want, fill it out, but hold on to it for the moment. As soon as the CVAC becomes active, obviously there'll be administrators in place, and they'll call for those submissions. They'll call for volunteers, and that's the point to use it. So we won't be holding any of those documents. For the military stuff, the idea is to download it, and we'll probably provide, again, a destination for that when the situation actually arises. So the only information we're going to keep, because there's some concerns about this database and there's all this information on it and who controls it, the only information we're going to keep is information voluntarily submitted when people download the Declaration of Freedom. It's going to just be their name, state, country at this stage, and that will be held in the database controlled by the webmaster. And it's as simple as that, folks. There's not going to be a great big database with everybody's information on it that, you know, someone might break into and pull information out of. It's going to be very simple, absolutely minimal, because we're all making this up as we go along, and some of the stuff we're doing is preemptive. We're doing it as preparation. So for those people in the chat that worried about some big database that the Dream Police might get hold of, it just won't be there. It's just a very, very simple means of providing a means of showing other people how many are interested in this and support it by downloading and using a Declaration of Freedom, keeping it as simple as possible. So that should answer that question.
There you go.
Yep.
Okay, I'd like to try and take a couple of calls before we go offline.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Good luck with that. We'll give it a go. I've got area code 773.
Oh my gosh.
Area code 773. You need to mute out or turn off your computer volume.
I am eternal.
Oh, it's the flow. What do you know, Flow?
What does it do? I just want to say hello to everybody out there in radio, TV, what do you call it, land, the ether. Just say hello to everybody. How's it going? Much love and peace and blessings.
And right back at you.
I just want to say, guys, man, thank you so much for everything that y'all do, man. Every time I listen to y'all, man, I get more, power, man. Y'all just put more force behind everything that I do and say, man. It's so amazing. What can I say tonight, man? I'm sitting here at my friend's house. She's looking over a video that I just put together for her. She sat here, did an interview, and LauraJamesArt.com. You can check out the campaign she's doing for Haiti. She's trying to put together the paintings that she does. She's a very talented artist, and she does her thing. She's in all sorts of publications. You can look her up, Laura James, LauraJamesArt.com. She is amazing, and she's got a new campaign going on in Haiti. She's putting together what you call the 14 Stations of Jesus. It's a wonderful thing. You can go check it out. And I just want to say, guys, thank you for being so amazing and allowing me to do and be. I don't have to do anything anymore. No more awakening is necessary. Everyone's awake who needs to be awake, and everyone who's not awake will wake up when they need to. So I'm just going to do and be with all the people.
I know you
that
can't
are
see this
around
flow
me.
right now. I'm giving you a standing ovation, my man.
Thank you, guys. And you, Brian, you said balls to the wall. That's my favorite way to say it's all in. We're all in. Remember that movie In Time, when the actual, time when, what was it, October 11th, it came out in 2011. It was a funny day. That movie, he went all in at the last seconds of his life. I said, ladies and gentlemen, this is real life right here. My heart was beating watching that movie to the end. When he saved his girlfriend and everything, I was in love with that movie. I wanted to be that guy. I was like, wait, I can do that. I can just walk from here to the other end of the country and just slap down my stick or something and just say, I own this, or I am this, I can be this, I'm here, look at me. Look at me.
Flo would make an amazing news correspondent. Can you see him with his little microphone with a camera, like on the scene, like right as this big story is breaking? You got Flo.
We will talk very soon. You and I.
The reporter of Flow.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Love you, man.
Flowing reporter.
I love you guys. That's exactly how I feel. I want to be your guys' like Al Roker, like just out there in the field. The storm, I'm chained to a tree. I'm not going anywhere because this tree is going to save my life because we are eternal essence embodied together. we're gonna survive this storm.
We will talk.
You know
I'm
what I'm saying?
The show.
Yeah, Flo. I reckon what's going to happen.
Thank you.
We love
Flo,
you,
they're
man.
going to be. Yeah, Flo, they're going to be coming to you and asking you. They'll be saying, "Flo, what's happening, man?" Because
yeah, and
it'll be. I imagine a really serious voice coming in and saying, "Flo, what do you know?" And then Flo just goes,
"What do you know?" You know, I know a lot, man. I don't know enough yet. I don't know everything. That's what I'm striving for. But you know, I know something.
Keep working at it, my man.
I know something that some people don't know. Thank you. Yes, absolute data. The Akashic records. Let's go.
Thanks,
Oh man, thank you guys
you.
so much, man.
All right, man.
I can't say anymore.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Cheers, guys.
Okay, area code 323. Area code.
Hi there.
Los Angeles?
Hi there.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
You can. No, this is Tamara.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
I've been beaming this whole call, listening to everything that's been discussed. I've been following this movement since I've been aware of the movement, which is back in December, and watching it transform has been incredible. And it was about 3 weeks ago I called in and talked about needing and wanting a foundation. And I just really don't have anything to ask. It's more along the lines of saying, Chris, thank you. I mean, of course, Heather and everybody else, the whole panel, for their time and their efforts and their sincerity and their integrity. But Chris, thank you for these documents, because this is exactly what we needed in our area to do the things that we need to do, to be a little more structure, to be able to talk to the alleged so-called authorities, to be able to shut down things like fluoridation in the water and other issues that our city is dealing with right now. And so I'm almost shaking, because I am so excited about this tool being the forefront to being able to go in and basically state, look, if you're going to be doing this, then there is enforcement, and this enforcement has an oath and a bond, and it's given, I think, everybody a foundation, a direction, a guidance to go. And the bonus, on top of everything else, the bonus is that you trust us enough to be able to write our own blood oath and bond. And that's amazing. That level of integrity, of trust, I only see being reflected back at this group. Yeah. And it's growing and expanding from there. This mirror image that you're giving everybody is going to light up in no time. I see people taking these tools now. I mean, as of like 2 months ago, when I really started soaking in, I had this vision that I saw everybody in the street partying. I mean, little kids jumping rope. I mean, radios blasting. I mean, it was just like this one huge, amazing party. And now we've provided that foundation to actually get there and enjoy our time together versus the struggling that we've all been in. And I can see that now. And so what I'm trying to essentially say is thank you for providing that foundation and that pathway for all of us who need that. So,
Tamara, what you brought up for me is, you've brought something up for me, which is, I've believed for a very long time that people live up or down to our expectations. Mm-hmm. And what this whole language about eternal essence, embodied, absent limits, has sort of brought into the conversation is that we have raised our expectations of ourselves and each other.
Yes.
And as a consequence, we're living up to them,
Well,
and that's...
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, please carry on.
I wasn't really going to say much more than that, other than...
Okay.
No, go ahead.
All I was going to say is that this has been proven actually in a town outside of Michigan where it's a small town, but all the business owners don't lock up their stores. They leave their candy stores open and candy out in the streets. The bike stores leave their bikes out. There's no locking of the bikes necessary because basically the trust comes from the core of the community. And as a result, that community reflects back that trust. And, I was thinking about the bombing that happened and, how the FBI, unfortunately, has this problem of wanting to set these scenarios up because they're so scared that these things are going to be happening. Or, of course, alternate agendas that don't serve us at all. But whatever it might be, they're creating the very scenario and the outcome that they desire. And so by nature, unfortunately, they attract those wrong people or those people that vibrate on that same level. Maybe that's what I should say. That's what's going to happen, So it's really nice to see in a community that has been, surviving actually through this, whole crazy episodes, especially since 9/11, of this crackdown terrorism. There's this one community that manages to keep saying to their people, we love you and we trust you.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say it's been proven on many levels, but especially now.
Well, Tamara, thank you for your comments. It is fantastic to hear someone completely embodying the concept that we are all one. Mm-hmm. That's brilliant.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm running on about 4 hours sleep and a really strong cup of coffee, and I don't need it anymore. So thank you. I don't need sleep. Don't need coffee.
Well, I just wanted to say to all of you, I love you all. From my deepest inside of me, I love you all. You are my brothers and my sisters, and I thank you for the journey that you have taken us on, and for the space to allow us to help mold that as well. I mean, really being real about your word. I appreciate that. So with that, I'll sign off.
You have no idea how much that means to us, Tamara. Thank you so much.
Yep, absolutely.
Appreciate it. Right back at you.
I just want to jump in for a quick second, and this time I'm going to insist.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Dee. We know you're going to anyways.
Citizens for disclosure, the Huffington Post newspaper is following it. I just put the link here in the bottom of our room if you want to throw it to the chat room. I just blogged about it. They're doing an hourly update of the entire thing.
Yeah, I'm blogging about it right now too.
Go to the site. You can read it all. An hourly.
How big is the Huffington Post in America?
It's a pretty big paper, well, at least, especially in the alternative areas, right? Because they are, they will actually put some truth in their paper.
See, the nice thing about this is
it considered mainstream paper?
It is very mainstream, yes.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, they have.
Very
I think they got 9 million hits on. Now I can't remember. They talked about it on the Citizens hearing today. One of their stories about something about disclosure got 9 million hits on it. So it just proved the demand for these types of stories. That there's demand from the American public that they want to know the truth.
Yeah, there's an aspect to this we've got to pay attention to. This is a 5-day event. We've got 5 days to put this out there. We can build this over a period of days to a peak, and hopefully on the last day, how many people could we have observing this event? That's the sort of focus that we can pull in. The last one was a day. It was over and gone and done, and people found it out after the event. Now they can find out before it's finished and watch some of it live.
Think about what they can do in 5 days, considering how much they accomplished today and day one. I mean, it's going to be incredible to see where they get by the end of this thing. Lots of media attention, I have to assume, by then.
Well, if we can push it out to all friends, relatives, contacts, tell them it's live, go and have a look. That'll build up get the build up it needs.
Yeah, start spreading the Huffington Post on your Facebook and in your other social media site.
Yes, yep, springboard off the Huffington because it's sort of not quite real alternate media, not quite mainstream. It's sort of in that fringe.
Well, the thing is, if the other mainstream media sees the attention the Huffington Post is getting, because it's all about revenue, right?
That's right.
Rating, dollar signs.
Yeah,
if all of a sudden the Huffington Post readership online goes up by 10 million hits in a day, I think the other papers might start taking note.
They will.
Well, you could start. A lot of the newsrooms run tweet services, and they put up tweets from people. So start tweeting the news and emailing the news services, all these breakfast stations and radio stations. Just hammer it home.
Yeah.
Just pump it in there. We can do that. See, this is disclosure from the people. Let's do our bit and just keep pumping. Say it's on now, it's on for 2 more days, 3 more, or say 4 days now, 3 days, 2 days. Why aren't we seeing it?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay.
Here we go. Whoa.
There's two in the call in the queue, both with area code 773. Oh, no, same number. Okay. I'm sorry. I'd like to bring you out, but maybe it's the new guys. Okay. Oh, did you see that one? Someone put a suggestion of CCs. Instead of
Cosmic
ETs,
cousins.
they're Cosmic Cousins.
Yeah, that's cool.
Cosmic Cousins.
Yep.
Okay, area code 612.
Hello, this is Donna. Thank you, guys.
Hi, Donna.
It's been a wonderful call. I'm
good.
so grateful.
Welcome. Thank you.
I'm calling to see if, just to say thank you to Julian. I've been listening to all of his interviews with Chris, and I'm wondering if I put my contact information in the chat room, Chris, if I can get into the Cosmic room with you guys.
Yeah, we might. I'm thinking we've had getting quite a few requests for that. We might actually organise something on the OPPT site, so you can pop in there and say, pop me in the Cosmic room. I don't know how many people these Skype rooms can hold.
They only hold 300 people, Chris.
Well, there's probably about 200 more people could jump in there, and it's absolutely fascinating stuff. And the conversations, the really important ones they're having, are going up on the OPPT site now, so you can follow along. But just send in a request, I think, to the there's a contact point on the OPPT page. Is there, Lisa?
Right now, she can put her Skype name in the chat room, and I'll pass it on. Yeah, it's just a matter of knowing your Skype address and doing all the usual Skype things. Yeah, it's damned interesting stuff happening in there. And it's not just about it's actually about developing your own mental abilities as well, because Julian's way down the path compared to us, and there are people out there who are way further than Julian as well, but we're sharing Julian's journey, and it is amazing to observe this thing he's going through, because that's the sort of thing that's coming up for everybody to one extent or another, so we believe. And I'm also working on trying to get Julian ready, if he's listening, I know he is, to give him his own radio show on the 5D network.
That would be great.
Yeah, really cool. He's kind of been working his way up to that, and he's quite ready. In fact, he's already got a co-host nominated, or a semi-co-host that he has in mind, who's going down the same path, but from a slightly different angle, because everyone ends up doing it differently, which is absolutely fascinating and quite predictable, actually, that everyone would do it differently.
So I've taken note of two Skype names so far that have come up in the chat room, so I'll get you added to that group.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. That was Donna. Okay, we've got one more caller in the queue, apart from our... Oh, no, two more callers. Okay. We've got area code 646. Area code 646? No.
Hello.
Oh, you are there. Hang on. I just muted you again.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Can you hear us? We can hear you.
Say hello back and forth.
This is Rick. Can you hear me?
Rick, I'm glad you called because I've had people calling out that want to connect with you that are in your area.
Oh, good. Well, I'm going to be in New York City on Wednesday. I usually go once a week, so I would definitely like to connect with you. Do you have an email address? Yes, I do. Shall I send it to your Gmail address or at least your LisaMHarrison.com address?
Well, would you mind sharing it on air, or is that?
No, I don't mind.
Okay, if you share it now, then those people listening that'd like to get in touch with you that are in your area can do so.
No worries.
Yeah.
No worries. Yeah. It is a night owl, and night is spelled with a K, so it's AKNIGHTOWL at gmail.com.
AKNIGHT.
OWL at gmail.com. At gmail.com.
Thank you.
And sorry I didn't get to speak with you guys last week. As soon as you can't hear me, just scream, because I'll just go yada, yada, yada until you say, sorry, can't hear you, next caller.
Yeah, Rick, Rick, we've only got a little bit of time. Lisa needs to mention something about flash mobs and contacts being on the website, because we've only got about a minute on air left.
Oh, got it. No, I don't have the information in front of me.
Okay, well, there is a flash mob set up on the site with media contacts and emails. If people can drop in and jump on that would be great. Back to you, Rick.
No, actually, before you go, Rick, we will go over time. So if you've called in, you'll stay with us. If you're just listening to the show at Blog Talk, we will lose you in 60 seconds. But whatever happens after that will be on the archive. So there is no room to call in, unfortunately. The line is full. So unfortunately, we will lose you. Yes.
Lisa, 10 seconds. I'm sorry. I promised somebody I'd make a comment. Calgary, Alberta meetup group on May 5th. If you're in Calgary, Alberta, meetup.com/Calgary-OPPT. Done.
Lovely. Thanks, everyone, for listening, and go back and listen to the archive for whatever you miss after this. Thanks again. Rick.
Hello. I'm glad that there's a clean connection this week. I was never really sure if it's my crappy DSL or something going on with Blog Talk or whatever, but I'm not really going to rehash what I kind of went through last week with the whole Boston bombing, although I did know when I was at the gym today that all the news stations are still covering it like it was just the most sensational thing of the decade. So the programming continues to drive it home, to be scared, to be afraid, to trust the government, all that stuff. But what I wanted to get to, which is actually something much more personal, way back in September, I got a parking ticket which was unjustly given to me, and I took pictures and I sent it in and da 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 da. I'm finally getting around. They just said guilty, 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 whatever. I'm finally getting around to sending my first courtesy notice out to the Department of Finance of New York City, and I guess I was all ready to do it last week, and then the bombing thing happened, and I just thought, can I even trust anybody out there? Are they all just these automatons that don't have anything, valid to actually to give forth? And I was just kind of wanted to get your take on that. How receptive do you think people in those bureaucratic environments actually are? So I'm looking for the good in here, but I'm also not looking to, get on some blacklist or something like that. Because these people are crazy. They just seem really crazy here, baby.
To be honest, people are getting responses that just cover the spectrum. From people being completely belligerent to never hearing from them again. They've taken the option, the waiver, and they never hear from them again. It's as much about where you're coming from as it is about whether the person receiving it.
So in other words, I probably shouldn't think that they're crazy.
Well, yeah. I mean,
sorry.
They're running on a particular, their paradigm is built in a particular way, and it's not their fault necessarily. They've been educated to the way things are in a particular way, and you're going to shatter that paradigm. So some may be receptive to that, and some may not initially.
Well, I tend to have really good rapport with people, and particularly in a live thing, and I try very, very much in my writing, because I'm a writer, so I send these letters in and everything and try to really explain my case, and it feels like it falls on deaf ears, so I'm not really sure how much more power a courtesy notice is going to have, but I was looking through it, and it sounds very powerful. And one thing I think Chris mentioned a few weeks ago, that if you put a cover letter with it, don't write a book, keep it short and sweet, right, Chris?
Oh yeah,
like
yeah. They just won't read stuff if it looks like it's too much hard reading. And definitely add if you do your Declaration of Freedom, however you want to word it, that if they look at that and the foreclosure flyer as well, just for some general information, they're going to be thinking, well, this guy's serious. That's the thing. And the nice thing about the Declaration of Freedom, it's pretty easy to read. They'll find the language unusual, but it's very clear.
Yeah, well, I'm ready to do it because a friend of mine who I just taught him how to drive, and he rented his first car when he was in L.A., drove it from the rental parking lot, forgot to put the lights on because my lights are always on in my car, so he didn't put the lights on, got pulled over, and instead, like in my day, cop would just give you a warning and say, turn your lights on. They gave him this ticket, and this is in Los Angeles. It was a $205 ticket for not having your lights on a freeway at night that has all kinds of lights there. So it's all just about revenue generation, and that's what really made me think that I got to get my courtesy notice in.
Yeah. Are you there, Scott?
Yeah. Scott?
No,
yep.
I think... Oh, Scott's there. Yeah, I just wondered if you wanted to add anything to any advice, give any more advice to Rick on the courtesy notice.
I'd say it's one thing that seems to be the case is that the notices that various folk in government have been receiving over the last how many years, same with banks. The way I look at it is they've seen just about every notice under the sun. And likelihood is that a lot of them just go straight into the crazy pile, as in it's not on standard bank letterhead or it's not on a government form. It must be one of those, and just gets lumped into the crazy pile. And I think it's only when the invoices start turning up and the follow-up continues do they go, maybe we should have read that one. So, that's what I'd add on that, and I'd just keep on going, and if they haven't rebutted any of the filings, which no one's done to date, then they still stand.
So, Scott, what you're saying, what I'm hearing is that you should definitely go follow up any courtesy notice if they continue to send their automated notices, that following up with that, with the invoice, is what really gets their attention, not so much the courtesy notice, but the following up on the courtesy notice. Is that correct?
I would say yes. Yeah. So what's happening is if you consider that they see the first one and go, oh, not a standard form, put it in that crazy pile. And it's when they start getting the invoices, they're pretty easy to recognise, given that they've got invoice written all over the top and a big sum at the bottom. They actually are read, and then if they relate back to where they came from, they go, oh, maybe we'd better do some more research into this. And I've found that a lot of times, even with some of the debt collectors I've dealt with over the years, is that it takes a few invoices before they get the idea and go, this is actually not getting us anywhere, and the bill is adding up, and they disappear.
No kidding. They've already spent and more than the resources that they're asking me for in this fine. But this last thing I got saying, if you don't do this, then we can collect your car, we can attach your wages, we can go to your bank account. And I'm thinking, like, really? Over $100 ticket? Are you kidding me? So I really want to come back with something.
Yeah. Have a look at that diagram that we discussed earlier on in the show, and you may like to hang the any third parties off the original courtesy notice. It just keeps the matter on the desk of the originator.
The originator being, like, I was going to send it to the head of the Department of Finance and the judge that gave me the last, because those are names I had, I could look up.
If you've sent the courtesy notice to an individual with regard to the matter that you're dealing with, I would treat that one as the originator.
Okay.
So that one has likely engaged someone else by saying, get it off my desk, you deal with it now. Then I keep going back to that originator, who's the first respondent that you sent that courtesy notice to.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, here goes. As you guys have been saying, all in, balls to the wall. Thanks for
Rick. There you go, my man.
You guys are so sweet and so dedicated, and my heart just pours out to you every week. I listen to you guys. You're just so fun and so marvelous. So thank you for sticking with this and staying true and staying authentic. It's such a beautiful thing to observe, to see that authenticity. Yeah. Take care, all.
Thank you. Thanks, Don.
Okay. So guys, I actually got to jump. Today is my 1-year anniversary, and my girlfriend Brittany is in the kitchen whipping up an incredible dinner, and I got to get off. And happy anniversary to my beautiful girlfriend Brittany, live on the radio.
Happy anniversary! Sorry to both of you.
They all say happy anniversary. Thanks, guys. I love you. I'll see you tomorrow on the Collective Imagination. Over and out.
See you then.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, you guys, who have we still got? We've got Scott and Bob and Chris. We've got 2 more callers with their hands up. We should give them a go, try and take them. And it's area code 336.
Hello?
Area code... Yes.
Yay.
Yay.
Hey, it's Lisa. It's Randy from North Carolina. How are you doing?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm great. Last time I was on, I didn't get to thank you guys. I've been on the call since Brian was on with Poof, which I think is very interesting. This all started with a Poof.
It started with a Poof, yes.
Yeah, that Poof interview went a long way. That Poof interview really got out there.
It really did. Yeah, and the night that I started listening to it, my brother was on the call, or was waiting for me to get off of the recorded message so he could listen to it. And by the time that he got ready to listen to it, it had been taken off the internet. So he's never got to hear it. And there's a lot of people I know that's never heard it. But that call, I think, was the pivot point for a lot of what we're talking about.
It's what prompted Heather to get in touch with Brian and AK.
Yeah, and I feel like that's what started me listening to you guys, because once I caught wind of that call, I started paying attention to what everything was coming off American Kabuki, and then that has led me to where we are now with OPPT. The first question I have several. David Wren had mentioned that in this country, the Postmaster General is what really runs the country behind the scenes. Should we be sending courtesy notices to our Postmaster Generals?
Oh, wow, I haven't even thought of that. That hasn't come up before.
Well, yeah. In fact, what you'd use is the ones that are nominated for people to bring this notice to people who are actively running a slavery system. And there's one that's...
Exactly, David Rand brought up the fact that George Washington and Ben Franklin were all Postmaster Generals, and if that's the case, should we not be taking care of this from that point of running the country?
Yes, we should. In fact, why don't we encourage people? The database that the gentleman that's working with Scott is setting up sounds like it's the place to put that information so that everybody can access email addresses and contact details for the Postmaster General. Then we can give them a little bit of love from our point of view.
It just feels like absolute data to me.
It does. It does. And the whole thing, it's incredible. You've spoken of being woken up by one interview. I mean, everyone seems to have, who's come into this knowledge, everyone's taken a different route, have been triggered by different things at different times. And as the information grows, there's going to be so much more potential for everybody to get turned onto this by that one little bit of information they find that says, holy crap. In fact, someone just flicked me a screen grab of the front cover of the Huffington Post, and it's got, in great big letters, "We are not alone," and then a photograph of the panel under it. And it's really in your face, and I hope a lot of people see that.
You know, I just want to put a shout out to BZ, who's doing an amazing job of adding content to the optin.com website daily. So for those of you who, if you're not sure where to find something, just go to that optin.com website and just have a thorough look through all the recent posts, and you'll find all the conversations we reference, the documents, flash mob ideas, kits for educating, whether it's Postmaster Generals or Provost Marshals or anybody else, all the courtesy notice information you'll need. She's done an amazing job of reorganising that whole site and making it very user-friendly, and there is new content going up daily. So everything you need is pretty much there. And it should be relatively easy to find because she's done a very good job of organising it.
Yep. Yeah, again, my personal thanks to BZ too. We go through little bursts of talking frequently while we sort out new material that's coming up, and she's been incredibly patient and helpful and positive, and she understands the energetic side. So yeah, thanks BZ, you're doing a fantastic job.
And was there anything else you wanted to add to the conversation?
There's 3 more things I want to add. One is a question on a jury summons. What should I do for a jury summons? Should I send a courtesy notice on a jury summons?
We did have this come up. I do remember there was talk of jury. Yes, there is somebody.
Jury duty.
There is
what
somebody who's in charge of all of that. Bob? Can you remember this conversation we had around jury duty?
I remember way back when we had the now paradigm tools. There was a specific document addressing jury duty, but you can send a courtesy notice for jury duty, but which one you would send, Chris, I'm not sure.
Well, my view.
There's somebody who's in charge of jurors. Go for it, Scott.
I'd say if you're getting an invite to go to jury service, you're likely to have a piece of paper that will be able to form the starting point for the standard courtessy notice.
Yep.
Okay, I have that, and the clerk of court and the Randolph County Sheriff are the names at the top of the paper.
I'm thinking, Lisa, the person you're thinking about is the clerk of courts.
Yes. The other thing
I had a specific name that actually referenced jury.
I have a document here with a file number on it. So is that, do I refer to the file number?
Yeah, I would. It gives the reference to the document. And the other thing I tend to do is take a photocopy of the document itself and send it along with the courtesy notice. Same with any invoice.
Okay.
As it gives the content.
And send that to the sheriff and the Superior Court clerk.
Just pick one of them. You may choose to copy the contents that you sent to the other, so that the other one is aware of what you've done.
Okay.
And that you're dealing with that matter with that individual.
Yeah, I'd also include the Declaration of Absolute Freedom, because people like clerks of courts who are very aware of our status as strawmen and the way that system works will look at that and go, oh, there's something going on here. So that could have a good effect. Will have a good effect, actually.
The third question I have, and then I have a comment after this. The third question I have is, I have just recently obtained the privilege, they call it, of having my driver's license reinstated because of a DUI. Now they're telling me I need this breathalyzer thing put on my vehicle. Will a courtesy notice provide me the freedom to be able to drive, or what do I need to do about this?
What I'd suggest is it will provide those who are attempting to coerce or force you into fitting that to your car the choice of whether they choose to continue that action of force or whether they choose to leave you alone. It won't compel them to do anything. Do you see how that works?
I just wanted to hear that. I do. I do exactly see that.
Yeah.
Cool.
So one of the aspects of the courtesy notice that's sort of coming to my fore is that it very much is based on free will choice, universal law.
Right.
You know, you're just giving them a choice. You're not compelling them to do things. And the system does nothing but compel us to do things. There's no free will choice in that whole proposition, yet we are standing in a position where saying, you know, universal law applies, free will choice applies, and here's how it applies to you. You've got a choice of putting that machine on there, and if you choose to do so, I choose to invoice you. And I've already informed you of that, and you can make your decision based on the information I've given you. So it's very much a universal law in action.
So who would I send that courtesy notice to? The Department of Motor Vehicles? Is there a certain person, or just do you send it?
I would look for the name of an individual who deals with that specific matter. If by telephoning them or looking on their website you're unable to find that, escalate it up through their form of hierarchy, and likely you may find that the individual who heads that organisation or former organisation is the one that you use.
Yeah.
And from that point forward, I'd carry a copy of that document that you offered to him or her with you.
On my person at all times. Okay.
And if you don't know that person's name, these are great questions to ask. Under whose authority or under whose order is this, being instituted?
Trying to be
Yeah. And see, the Declaration of Freedom, of Absolute Freedom, is actually a record you've created of your own authority to deal with all your own affairs in exactly the way you choose. So, supplying that and saying, under what authority do you tell me what to do? Here's my authority. Where's yours? And of course, if you're carrying a copy of the terms and conditions, if someone turns up to your house with the machine and they want to install it, you can take those terms and conditions and you can show them, if you've got a copy of the original courtesy notice, say, I've actually already sent this to your boss, and he knows these term conditions apply, and unfortunately, you're the guy who's turned up to put it in, and you're going to get an invoice from me if you proceed, so you can choose now whether you want to proceed or whether you'd like to receive an invoice from me.
Well, here's my little dilemma with it. In order to be able to obtain a driver's license, and I understand that I really don't need one, I can drive without it, being sovereign, but in order to obtain a driver's license, you have to have approval of this machine on your vehicle, or they won't issue a driver's license. So do I use that document in order to obtain a license, or do I just go without a license?
That's unfortunately your call.
Yep.
Yeah.
We can't make that call for you, but
yeah, and we would totally
need.
Yeah.
Well, at the start of the call, I understood you talking about the police are really questioning these OPPT courtesy notices, and I think it'd be good for everybody to keep one on them that understands what we're carrying.
Yeah, and I mean, everyone understands that if you poke the bear, the reaction can be unpleasant, and
right.
if you decide just to do what you have to do now, everyone completely understands that. There's we can't compel you to do anything in the same way that they should not compel us to do anything. So there's no judgment from our end. If you decide to go ahead and just go through the system as per normal, there's no judgment from anyone on this panel that you have to do so. That's
right. We just encourage. And I have the free will to drive anywhere I want to.
You do.
Am I correct in saying that? Okay.
Yeah, but see, knowledge throughout the system is patchy. They're trying to put out the call that it doesn't apply, and what you don't want to be doing is ending up in an argument on the side of the road with a policeman who just views himself as doing his job, and he's come across something that he's never seen before, and he's confused by it, and it can actually, that can get difficult. So just. You have to be aware of what you're stepping into, and if like that fellow James that Lisa's referring to, he'll do that anywhere, balls to the wall, but that's his choice.
Right.
And but the system is being peppered with courtesy notices overall, and they're really starting to sink in from what we're judging.
Right. Well, and the fourth thing I wanted to say or add to this whole phone call, and I know we're running over time here. I read the channel from Ronna Herman from Archangel Michael today, and it's really powerful. I don't know if I have the freedom to say anything about that on here, but there's something about that channel that really just resonates with me completely. And what I saw after I read the channeling was that the veil has been rent or lifted, in other words, and that pieces of it may still be in place in front of people's faces. It's just like maybe a tent's up somewhere and the tent comes all to pieces. Maybe some people still have that tent in front of their face and they can't see the truth. But that doesn't mean that the veil's not been rent.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, a lot of people are keeping it in place by paying attention to it.
They're scared of the change. They're scared of accepting the truth. And that's really that's the hardest part of this whole thing, is that the truth is so powerful. If people would just turn off their TVs and quit reading the newspapers, I think they would realize, the kingdom of heaven is within. It's not somewhere out there. It's within. And when you start listening to your heart and being truthful with yourself, you can be truthful with everybody.
Absolutely.
But see, that's the system has just divided us so effectively and scared people so effectively. They're all in the wrong state of mind to take the choice of looking within. But by the same token, there's so many people that are so ready to wake up, like yourself, because that poof interview, that was really only about 5-6 months ago, and even since then, I'm finding people are very open.
It tied into so many things that I was listening to at the time that I was trying to share information with people, and people looking at me like I'm crazy, but it resonated with me. It was truthful to me. And when I heard this poof interview, I told my brother, we were riding, he drives a truck for Caterpillar, and we were riding his truck that night, and I turned around and I said, this right here is getting ready to change everything. And he said, well, I won't listen to that when you're done or whatever. And I was listening on my Bluetooth, and when I got done, I passed it over to him, and by the time he got it, it had already been taken off the internet. And I said, no way. And
I do believe that they're going to try and get it put back up, but
they did. They put it back up, but it's in word format. It's not in the vocal that it was, or the recording.
Well, thank you for calling in. I hope we've answered your questions adequately.
You sure have, and I wanted to tell you guys, I'm sorry. Last time I called in, I didn't get to thank you guys for so much that you've done. I really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. And like I said, I didn't get to share that with you last time, but I'm sharing it now. And I really mean it. You guys are wonderful.
Well, we appreciate that, and so are you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
Have a good night.
Well, thank you to everybody who's
my brother's Rick. I'm Randy.
Well, hey, say hi to Randy for us.
All right,
thank you, everyone. Thanks for the listening. Thanks for the calling. Thanks for the chat room. I mean, you guys rock, as usual. It's been a great show today, and we will be back tomorrow for the Collective Imagination on the 5D Media Network. And it's bye from me.
And it's bye from me.
And good night, everyone, from me as well.
We'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, guys.